What's up, everybody? Mike Hart. So today we are going to talk about extroversion versus introversion. So this is a very common question I get. People want me to cover. The first thing you need to understand about this difference is it's not about shyness versus outgoingness. It has more to do with energy than anything else. So they've actually done studies on this. Extroverts require more stimulation. Introverts are more easily stimulated, and therefore their energy reserves are depleted quicker and much easier especially from external stimuli like sounds, especially loud and very eventful environments. So they're going to need the alone time to recharge, and extroverts are essentially the opposite. They require the action and socializing for their energy. So that is the primary difference between extroverts and introverts is about energy. It's about how you recharge your batteries. So introverts literally require quiet and alone to recharge their batteries. And their energy can often to extroverts seem a little bit almost like it fluctuates. Like one day their batteries are fully charged and they're, bouncing off the walls. They may come off like an extrovert. But then another day, they're just completely wasted. I mean, the energy's gone. They don't want to talk to anyone. They just want to. So they can be a little bit up and down like that. But that's the most important thing you need to understand is introversion is not the same as shyness. So shyness is nature. Introversion is nurture. That's really a good way to look at it. So introverts can learn to become more outgoing and better in social situations, but they're always, for the rest of their life, they're always going to have that need for the recharge time. And the same thing with extroverts. They're going to need, when an extrovert walks into a party or any kind of social event, they see a plethora of opportunities for social interaction. That's what energizes them. They thrive on that kind of thing. Whereas an introvert sees, depending on the introvert and depending on their mood, they see either a bunch of threats or they want to go to a corner somewhere away from all the noise. But something about introverts, though, is sometimes they are in the mood to mingle. Sometimes this will come out if they've had a few drinks or something like that. They can loosen up a bit, but they're still always going to have that need at the end of the night for the alone time or the quiet time to recharge. And that's never going to go away. In fact, out of all the traits there are, this one is the most stable throughout the lifetime. So people who are born introverts, they stay introverts. People who are born extroverts, they stay extroverts. So actually, let's start with depth and breadth. So introverts tend to be, they tend to naturally be deep thinkers. They think deeply about everything. And it's not that extroverts can't think deeply. They can. It's just something that comes more naturally for introverts. It's something they kind of are just wired to do. They're pretty much always thinking deeply. It's just something they do. And their focus tends to be on more depth than breadth, whereas extroverts, it tends to be breadth. Extroverts tend to be more generalists, and introverts tend to be more specialists. They tend to specialize in a few subjects, whereas an extrovert is more likely to know a little bit about everything. The introverts, for the same reason, they're the same way with their friends. They'd rather have really deep friendships, like a few really deep friendships, whereas extroverts tend to have a ton of acquaintances, a bunch of sort of shallow friendships, if that's how you want to put it, and then maybe a couple close friends, but if an extrovert doesn't work on their ability to establish depth with a person, most of them do, but especially when they're young, they can just have a bunch of kind of shallow friendships and a bunch of acquaintances and never really get close with anyone. Whereas introverts have a tendency to just get close with a few people. It's just to most introverts, they don't really understand friendships that aren't close. So they'd rather have a couple close friends than a bunch of acquaintances. Introverts actually tend to not like to have a ton of acquaintances. It can be kind of overwhelming for them to have. A lot of introverts will look at extroverts and see all their acquaintances they have and think like, oh man, that would drive me nuts to have that many people contacting me all the time and things like that, or have 1 million followers on social media. So introverts tend to be more private. They tend to withhold themselves a little more. Like in a group, they're not as likely to freely express their opinion unless asked. You might have to ask them for their opinion, which oftentimes they'll appreciate. Introverts can sometimes feel left out because of this. They often don't realize that they may come off to extroverts as not being involved or not being interested, when it really isn't that. They tend to want to sit back and kind of take everything all in, whereas extroverts tend to be more of an open book. They tend to be more free with expressing themselves, freely expressing their opinions. So in that way, extroverts can sometimes get irritated with introverts and almost see them as secretive or distrustful, or they may be distrustful of the introvert for that reason. But it's just the way the introvert is. They'd rather think really deeply about what they're going to say before they say it. They tend to think before they speak, whereas extroverts tend to just automatically know what they're going to say. They tend to be much quicker in debates for that reason. So extroverts typically are really good with words. They know what they want to say like immediately, whereas introverts tend to think a little more and hesitate, which can irritate some extroverts. They're thinking, spit it out, what's taking you so long? But it's just the way introverts are. We need both in the world. We need the introverts for the deep thinking, and we need the extroverts for everything else. That's why introverts make up only like 25% of the population. So they are the minority. Because of that, there can be some discrimination because introverts are the minority and extroversion is rewarded in Western societies. So if you like to go out and party every night, you're cool. But if you want to stay home and play chess with one friend, you're weird. This may be becoming a little bit more acceptable with the advent of social media. People probably aren't going out as much. The newer generations, maybe there is going to be some more evolution towards higher levels of introversion. Interestingly, in certain parts of the world, there are more introverts. Like East Asia, it's a little bit higher. It's still the minority, but introversion is a little more accepted in those countries. And so yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Introverts and extroverts, the most important thing is it's not about shyness versus non-shyness. These are things that, out of all the traits that have been studied, these are the ones that they are most sure is something you were born with. You can't help it. You can become more confident socially, but you can't change the way your body deals with energy and the way it deals with stimulation. So extroverts require more stimulation, and introverts don't need as much stimulation. So if you have any questions, guys, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.